So I'm watching a video with John Vervaeke, Jordan Hall, Jordan Peterson, and they start talking about voices in your head that are not beneficial. They're trying to discern, well, when is something not your conscience and it's condemning? And then the more I hear how they're describing it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this sounds like exorcism and demons, and that's kind of where it goes.
I ask the source of the normativity of the judgment that's being rendered against me. The voice is saying, whoa, that's not real. And I say, okay, tell me what real is then. Tell me what your standard of realness is. I get it to commit to a normativity. And then once it commits to a normativity, then I can bind it to what I was talking about earlier.
Okay, so let me ask you a clarifying question.
Yes.
Does that mean that conscience without call is unreliable? Like if I'm stopping you and calling you out on your misbehavior, let's say, but I'm not providing an alternative pathway forward, is that one of the markers of pathological, like tyrannical conscience?
I think so. I don't know if that's the point I was making.
Oh,
so,
okay.
No, let's not lose that point.
Yeah,
That's a good
okay,
point.
okay.
So let's put a pin in that point.
Yeah.
The point I was trying to make is the pathological conscience isn't consistent about normativity. What it does is constantly invokes normativity that it refuses to submit itself to.
Okay, so it's not playing by its own rules.
It's not playing by its own rules. So I'll say,
Is it incoherent?
It is, and this goes towards Whitehead's idea. I find that which in it which is ultimately self-destructive.
I think, by the way, the implications, that notion of it being incoherent, it does not cohere with you. Right? So
It might not even cohere internally.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Because one of the things, like, if your superego is the voice of a sadist, then it's going to say whatever it can say for the purposes of making you guilty or hurting in some way, right? It's not like that's orienting you towards something higher. It's a power maneuver. And sadism is a power maneuver, fundamentally.
It is. And so what I've learned to do is to challenge that and say, yeah, like in addition to whatever pain it might be inflicting, and pain can be borne if you understand it, right?
Yeah, it can be salutary as well if it's appropriate.
What conscience gets is the claim, often implicit, that there's an authority behind the pain. That the pain is based on, that the source of the pain has the right to inflict pain on you because it has an authority, because it's speaking according to some standard that you should be following. And what I try and do is get it to tell me what that standard is. And very often that I can then bind it to, well, the thing you said, well, what's the point of this? Well, give me a clear example of something that has a point. Voice. If this is pointless, give me a clear example of something that has a point. Because if your point is that nothing has a point, you are engaged in self-destruction. Because there's no point in me paying attention to you either.
So the problem I see with Dr. Vervaeke, I mean, it's pretty good, don't get me wrong, it was interesting when I saw that. The problem I have with the video is the 7 Sons of Sceva for 200. Paul I know, Jesus I know, but who are you? And then whammo. Your IFS goes right out the window into an ambulance. IFS being internal family systems, which talks to fragmented parts of the internal you, and there might be just a squatter, an unwanted resident, which these guys are now recognizing occur. And in my part of the world, we call them demons or critters, more technical term. And the thing that Dr. Vervaeke, at least as far as I know his work, you don't deal with sonship or identity from a Christological perspective, being that you are beloved son and or daughter of God, and you don't belong with these, you don't deserve these things. And the way you get them out is in the name of Jesus. However, I do like what he's saying, in that you figure out to discern, to figure out the nature of the Spirit. Is it of God? Does it have a target that is peace, love, joy, kindness, meekness, temperance, Book of Galatians, fruit of the Spirit kind of a thing? Or if it's just like kill yourself, which is not a bueno, don't do it, that's a demon. And to discern between the two, it seems like people, saved or unsaved, can figure this out. It's just how you remedy it, which I think the doctor does pretty good in some ways. It's just getting it to leave and not just living with it in your mind and heart. Because once you find a lie, what you do is you replace it with the truth. Truth being Jesus, biblical truth, life is good, your beloved son and daughter, and spiritual truth, which is the encounter with Christ in our hearts and minds, in conversation and communion, that reconcile us to God and also just make us feel good so we don't feel bad anymore. So that's exorcism, is really just getting back in the right relationship with God. So not really hating on Dr. Vervaeke, but just making an observation. So till next time.